Thank you very much. It is indeed an honor and pleasure for me to be here this evening now, with you to share a few things with you. And I hope by the time we get through, and that shouldn't take me more than about an hour, but by the time we get through, I hope I've enlightened some of you of what the Sheriff's Office does and what it does for its community. I got to share this with y'all, though. When I was Chief of Police in Baker, my headquarters was right around the corner from where Rotary held their meetings. And I was the emergency guest speaker for Rotary. I still hold the record on that. I think they called me 12 different times, like 15 minutes after the meeting started, and said, "Can you come over?" "Yeah, I'm there." So I really want to start off. I think all of you know that we put our annual reports on the table. Please feel free to take one and share it. And then I'm going to go over a lot of things here with you on the slide presentation, and then afterwards I'll be glad to answer any questions you have, with one exception. Hiller can't ask any questions. Yeah, I know you do. Who's doing the clicking? Yes, sir. That's fine. I got it. Thank you. I got a 360-degree approach to law enforcement. I've had it my entire career, and this is it here. And I usually use a scale of justice to describe that. But one, we do a tremendous amount of enforcement, but we also do a tremendous amount of community outreach. You can't do one without doing the other, and you can do too much of one and not enough of the other, and you're still not going to accomplish what you want to. It's very important that we go out into the community and meet the people that we're serving, let them know who we are, know what their problems really are, and what's their main concern in the areas that they live, and we do a tremendous amount of that. But like I say, if you do all the community outreach and no enforcement, you're not going to achieve what you want. You got to balance it, and we do. We do a lot of innovative enforcement. Rehabilitation. When I started my career with East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office, I worked for a year in the prison. I learned way back then that we weren't doing the right things, not if we wanted people to get out and expect them to change. And that's why we have this revolving door, and that's why we have so much recidivism. But we do a lot of rehabilitation at the prison, and I'm going to touch on that a little later. Recruiting and promotions. This is something that we're big on. I know everybody talks about it. Everybody is understaffed throughout this nation. I don't care where you go in the United States. It's the same thing with all law enforcement agencies. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but recruiting is very, very hard to do now. We're not going to lower our standards just to fill some positions, because that's not going to serve any of us by doing that. But we strengthened and enhanced the application process, which resulted in more qualified employees. We formed hiring and promotion boards, which resulted with our Deputy of the Month awards and annual awards programs. We created a recruiting team, and it's resulted in diversifying our staff, and we improved compensation and related benefits. As a result, over the last 14 years, we've increased starting pay by more than 35%, and that's not all one time. That's been gradually over those years. We've improved our health care and benefits as well. These are new divisions that we formed since I've been sheriff. We started a homicide division. We started a K-9 division. We started a bike patrol, community policing unit, which is very effective, and they stay busy. We started a public information department, our grants department. We started a criminal investigation unit, an aviation unit, a marine search and rescue unit. We organized the retail theft and pawn shop division, and our investigative support units. I'm going to talk about enforcement on this slide. We've increased uniformed patrol deputies on the streets by 12%, and we've increased detectives by 30%. We opened new substations in order to better provide service throughout the parish. We made Gardere and Burbank full-time. We opened Zachary, we opened Pride in Port Hudson, and we just opened another one on Industrial Flex, where we leased an old bank building, and we moved some detective functions over there. It's also a place where you can go in if you need to get a report. You can go in there rather than have to go all the way to their headquarters to get it. And we opened up our new Crime Information Center. Enforcement has been making our parish safer. For the first 12 years in office, we reduced violent crimes against persons by 41%. We reduced homicides by 45%. We reduced property crime by 24%, and we greatly increased clearance rates in all divisions. And let me explain to you. As sheriff, I wear 3 hats. I've got the civil office, the criminal office, and corrections. And when I give you these stats, these are stats mainly for the unincorporated areas of the parish. We have jurisdiction throughout the parish. We can go anywhere, and that's why we don't refuse call for service no matter where you live, inside the city of Baton Rouge, outside. It doesn't matter. We're going to go if you call us. And right now, about 23% of all of our calls for service come from within the city of Baton Rouge. But when I give you these stats, these are reflective of the sheriff's office. This is in your book. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but it's 2021 annual report statistics. If you won't have time to go over it, I hope you do sometime. Sit down and look at it, and it tells you what we've done in narcotics. And in uniform patrol, we got it broken down into where the biggest volume of our calls are. Gardere substation has 21%. We've handled 21,816 calls there last year. Client Peter is our largest volume area. That's 34% of all of our calls for service. That was 23,116. Central is 12%, which is, we handle 7,131 calls in Central. And Scotlandville, it was 19%, which is about 10,000, a little over 10,000 calls. Pride substation was 10%, which is 2,712, and in Zachary substation is 591, and that's our call volume for last year. What I did by opening those substations, the north part of the parish is our biggest landmass, and we don't have to put a lot of deputies up there because of the call volume. It's a lot less. And we try to allocate personnel where it needs to go to meet the challenges. But we have 2 substations up north, like I said, the Zachary substation, which is in the Plains, and the Pride substation, which is out in Pride. Then you come down and we got Central substation, Scotlandville substation, and then you drop down below that and we got Gardere and Burbank substations. So we tried to balance it out, and when you look at personnel allotted to those different areas, you'll see that we have more where the higher volumes are than in the less volume areas. In 2021, we had 17 homicides that we solved. I think we had one that was unsolved, but I think it was solved this year, if I'm not mistaken. This year, we've solved 6, and I think we've had 8 total for in the parish. And we're very proud of that clearance rate. We've been as high as 92% clearance rate in certain year. But right now, we're about 88%, which is well above the national average. The national average is something like 56%. And then you go from there. But I'm very proud of the work that the men and women do that work in that in the homicide division. Anti-crime initiatives, we have targeted enforcement. As I mentioned earlier, we made hundreds of arrests, clearing thousands of warrants, drugs, and guns seized. We have holiday initiatives, which we increased patrols in business and residential areas, greatly reducing crime. We have business checks. We increased deputy-initiated business checks by 60%. We have substation community outreach, which is sources of events engaging local residents. Enforcement, under enforcement again, we have unprecedented interoperability. We got our violent crime unit, Delta Drug Task Force, drug enforcement and abatement, that's through the DEA, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms with the ATF, school drug task force, FBI task force, internet crimes against children task force, Louisiana State Police Fugitive Apprehension Unit, JTF 7, which is a marine operation that serves 7 parishes along the river from St. Francisville down to Ascension Parish. And that all came about by grants through the federal government, through the Harbor Police, the Harbor, Greater Baton Rouge Port did that, and we all 7 sheriffs along the river have assets assigned to that. We got Crime Stoppers, Truce, and we also have technicians assigned to the Louisiana State Police Crime Lab for DNA, guns, and other things as well. And we're fixing to expand that. Enforcement safety in our schools. We got drug task force. We got school resource officers. We've had DARE in hundreds of schools across the parish forever. That's inside other jurisdictions, inside Baton Rouge as well. And we have the truancy initiatives. Technology, we switch radios to 800 megahertz with other first responders. We can now, anybody else that's on the 800 system, which just about everybody is, if you leave Baton Rouge today and drive west, you can go all the way to the other side of Orange, Texas, and still have communications with our units here and everybody in between. You can do the same thing if you go east. You get to about around Gulfport, and then we lose it. But it's really helped our interoperability with other agencies, and especially in the time of tragedies or disasters. We updated our computer and phone services for better customer service. We have online tax payment now, and I would like to mention that I'm not the tax assessor. I do not set your taxes, I just collect them. So my wife, and every year, and I've been sheriff now for 14 years, and every year, why are we getting this? I say, Susie, call the tax assessor. I'm not the tax assessor. But yes, I do. I pay taxes like y'all do, and I'm glad I do because it helps me go to my salary. So, all right. We updated safety equipment and training to better protect deputies and residents. We've bought improved body armor and rifle vests. And I'm pleased to announce that we're going to start. We already signed a contract with the company to do it, but it's probably going to be around the first of the year before we get it totally implemented. But we're going to start body camera with our department. I've never been against the body cameras. There's pros and cons with any of it, but I think we're better off having video than not having video. We just didn't have the money. It's too much money to me to take out of my budget because it's a fixed budget. But anyway, I have no reoccurring expenses. But this is going to be pretty much a one-time expense, and we're going to have reoccurring expenses with it. But it's what we need, and we got some of that CARES Act money that we set aside to pay for those cameras. So, firearms training, crash simulators, and I know Casey wouldn't want me to put this in here, but we have also firearms simulators so you can train on when to shoot and when not to shoot. We've updated our depleted fleet, but we got ones now that we having to try to change because COVID and all of availability of everything has shut down so much that we hadn't been able to order cars from the manufacturers to replace some of our older cars. So we had 50 that we was supposed to get from one company, and they cut us back to 30, and I found out they cutting everybody across the board with it here in Louisiana, and I'm sure elsewhere too. but we're gonna make do. We got a good fleet operation that takes care of all of our vehicles and equipment. Community outreach, I talked about that earlier, and I can't express it enough. We're keeping residents more informed, fully informed, with annual reports such as you have in front of you, monthly newsletters. You can go online with us and you can see exactly what we're doing. We get much more timely and much more in-depth and correct information to the public with television, press releases, website, social media. We have more face-to-face, two-way communications through community policing unit, bike patrol, and neighborhood initiatives. And let me say this too, and I'm gonna kind of go back. Well, I'll wait. I know y'all gonna have some questions on that, so I'll just wait rather than regress. Rehabilitation in the prison, and it's stopping the revolving door, as I mentioned earlier. When I took office, they had 2 self-help programs at the prison. We now have 22 self-help programs. It's parenting, it's money management, it's anger management, and et cetera. And it's all done by volunteers. We have volunteers that come into the prison on a daily basis to teach these programs, and we feel like it's doing a lot of good. One thing I wanted to do is start a GED wing, because if you look at the prison and you look at the people that are incarcerated, one thing that's going to jump out at you is the educational level. The average educational level at the prison is the 7th grade. Now, we don't lead the nation in that. Nationally, it's the 5th grade. But it's still a lack of education is one of the problems that we have. So we started a GED wing for those that wanted to get education. We can put them in a more conducive environment to get an education. And we've graduated hundreds with our GED program. Another thing I did, they said you couldn't do it, but I did it. I checked with sheriffs across the country that have done it, and I said, tell me what you did right, tell me what you did wrong. And we pretty much stood to that, to those recommendations. We opened up a faith-based wing, and you got to earn your way into that faith-based wing. Nobody's made to go into it, no more than they are the GED wing. But it's all denominations. We have over 115 churches and with all denominations across this parish that have people go in there daily to have instruction. So we're hoping through that to help some of the rehab programs that we get and enhance that. We've got work release programs, and I'll just touch on that real quick. Those are inmates that qualify for that. It's all set up by the state. Who qualifies for it and who doesn't. And we contract with a lot of businesses that these work release inmates serve at. And I know several of them call me and say, when can I have some more? When can I have some more? COVID kind of shut that down for us too for a while, but we're back on track. And I know several business people. I can tell you, you're probably not going to go in many restaurants in Baton Rouge if we don't have some work release people working in. But most of the time, the beauty part of that is the person they're working for gets to know them, gets to train them, gets to see whether or not and if they don't cut the mustard, they send them back to us. But so many times when people are released that are in the work release program, they already got a job to go to. So they're not going to get out, go back in the same environment and do the same things. So that's all part of rehabilitation. We got a Reality Behind Bars program for troubled youth. We provide the public defenders and the DA and the courts direct access to information to determine appropriate bonds, and that's something I'm very proud of. Hiller has worked very hard and has worked with us and the warden to try to make sure that proper bonds are being set, because that's one of the problems we have right now with what's going on out on the streets. And if y'all want to get into that, I'll get into it as well and answer any questions you got on that. This is how the sheriff's office is funded, and it breaks it all down. But if you look at it, 71% of our budget comes from ad valorem taxes. We do not make a penny off of sales tax. Most of the sheriff's offices in the state of Louisiana don't. I think there's only 6 sheriff's offices that have proceeds come from a sales tax, but we're not one of them. We used to back in the day, years and years ago, when Brian Clemens was the sheriff, and he gave up the tax in the parish for something that they did with the prison through city parish. And it probably was a good move on him, because back in that day, there wasn't really a lot of business out in the parish. It was all in the city. But I wish he'd have never done that, because if he wouldn't have, we'd be getting a good little chunk of parish-wide money right now. But anyway, I would have probably had to do the same thing if I was him, but that's just under the bridge. Let's go. Oh, I wanted to mention too that you can see that we got a $98 million a year budget, and we're funded on those ad valorem taxes in fines and fees, but 74% of our budget comes from them. And we have, on the next slide, please, we have 3 millages, and that's pretty much what sustains us. One of them is a permanent millage. 2 of them are renewable every 10 years. We've got one coming up in December of this year, and that funds about a third of our department. It's like $33 million a year that millage, and it's 6.9 mills, but that's our largest. And we got it coming up for renewal, like I say, in December. The next slide. That shows you our budget throughout the years, starting with fiscal year 06 and going on through up until today. And a lot of that had to do with the things, the equipment, the personnel, and the divisions that we started. But we've done that without having to go to the public and ask y'all for a penny. I know one day it'll happen, but it's not happening now. But we're pretty proud of what we've been able to accomplish and the things we've provided and the service we provide to the parish. And we haven't done that. We stayed within that budget to do it. And we've had to do some innovative things. My purchasing department has renegotiated a lot of contracts, and it came out for our better. And then we've taken advantage of some windfalls to be able to put that money in there. Problem with our budget is I can't really do a lot. I can't do something that doesn't give me reoccurring revenue. And a lot of this, some of it is, but we're not sure what it is. But I can't go out and spend money that I don't have and just roll the dice, so to speak. I've never done that, and I never will. But let's give this guy a hand for you did a great job. Thank you. So I guess what I'll do now, I could talk another hour, but I'm going to open it up for any questions. Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you for protecting the sheriff.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
I wanted to maybe glean some of your insight and wisdom in what you think we could do to better secure our schools after the Uvalde shooting.
Well, this is something, and thank you for the question. It's an excellent question and a very timely question. After that tragedy over in Uvalde, I've got a meeting tomorrow with all my commanders, and we're going to reevaluate where we are. I think we're in good shape, but I'm sure there may be some things that we need to tweak in our responses. But after Columbine, we know you can't sit back and wait for SWAT teams. That takes a while to get. You might get a few of them on scene, but you use what you have and go. As long as it's an active shooter, we're going after the active shooter. Now, if it is truly a hostage situation, then we don't want to get anybody hurt. We're going to try to negotiate our way out of it. But whenever they're shooting, you got to go. You got to go. And I'm not throwing any aspersions. I wasn't there. I look at it from a perspective. When I was at Baker, Uvalde was about the same size the city of Baker was. The geographical area as well as the population. And so they never have said, but they probably don't have but maybe 30 or 35 actual officers that work the street. And I know when I was at Baker, right after Columbine, I said, you know, we got to do something. We don't have a SWAT team. We're not going to be able to get one. We couldn't afford it. And you can call them sheriff's officers, you can call them Baton Rouge or whoever, but it takes them even longer to get there. So I knew that guy, whoever was on the street, the guy, gal that was on the street, something happens, they wouldn't have to go. So I brought this guy in. He was teaching for the military out at Tech. He was with the Israeli some secret something. But he came to Baton Rouge, he came to the United States, started teaching military. He's on a military contract. But he taught us how to respond, the crisis intervention response. And so I outfitted all my guys with the proper equipment. But that's how we got by. And I'm kind of thinking this might be the same thing over there, but apparently they didn't have that, you know. So I also called Cito Northeast. I said, Cito, we got to sit down, because at one point it was under the past school board administration and this one, we sat down after he came in, and they really wanted to put a resource officer in every school, and I'm for doing that. But it costs money, and I don't know, they were going to look at the money situation, but we back on that. We're going to meet again. We're going to probably have some more drills pretty soon to make sure that we're doing what we need to be doing. And I'm confident we are, but I just want to make sure. And if there's something they need that I hadn't thought of, then we're going to get it, whether it's equipment, but we have all that ballistic vest and mats and so forth and so on, protective gear. I mentioned those vests we got. We got the best vest. It's more expensive, but it's the best vest that you can buy. And we have the protection stuff. And at some point in time, you just got to bite, I hate to say bite the bullet, but you got to go in, you know. So did I answer that?
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm confused. Is it working?
Yes.
I'm confused as to, like, y'all work some murders, other people work murders. Who determines whether the sheriff office does it or the local police? Can you explain that?
Yes, ma'am. Good question. I said earlier, as sheriff, I am, quote unquote, the chief law enforcement agency for the parish. And as such, me and my deputies have jurisdiction throughout the parish. So we can go handle anything. And look, everybody pays taxes to us. And like I mentioned earlier, we're not going to tell you now we're not coming. You call us, we're coming. But primarily, out of a respect for the other agency, like Baton Rouge City has their own Baker's Act, whatever, central, but they handle their own. We're there to assist them any way we possibly can. But we're primarily still responsible for the unincorporated areas. But we started a VCU, Violent Crime Unit at the State Police. This was back when Edmondson was the chief, was the colonel there, and Jeff LaDuff was the chief of police in Baton Rouge. And Jeff and I and Hiller and other people got together, and we went and formed a violent crime unit. And what that does, it puts all of our homicide detectives in that building, and it's housed at State Police, and then it puts all of the Baton Rouge City's detectives that handle that homicides at the same building. So we've got employees that are looking at each other just like you and I are, talking to each other on a daily basis, and we really share a lot of information to each other. And it's been a tremendous help. I need to get the stats on where it is now. Hiller might know, but where it is now and where it was before. But you know, it's something that helps. But you know, we're not. I really don't have the personnel to handle a whole parish with everything. If I did, I'd be answering you in a different manner. But that's what it is. You know. Yes, sir.
Sheriff, have you had an increase in eviction enforcement this year?
Surprisingly, not enough to say boom is going. You know, they stopped a lot of evictions during COVID because the money flow, I guess. But it hadn't. I've got friends that own a complex apartment, and it's been a mess for them when they get somebody that doesn't pay, and they've been in there a year. You know, you still got to pay your bills, and if you got to shut the whole thing down, you're not helping anybody. So, but that's something that's above my pay grade. But yeah, evictions, they're up, but they're not where you would think they would be, and it's because of the restrictions that some of the owners have with being able to evict people now. It's very, very hard. It's very, very hard, and of course, you got to go through the court system for that, and that's a whole nother issue as well. Sir, you had a question, or one of y'all over there? Okay, I saw a hand go up. Anybody else? Where? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Look, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, now.
Thank you for your emphasis on education. Are there certain types of books that you would like to have for your library if we were to have a book drive?
Yes, ma'am. We sure do. I'm gonna give you my card when we get through, and
I'll talk to Casey.
great. Because that's who I would talk to. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
How is East Baton Rouge Parish, the Sheriff's Department addressing all this drag racing, street racing, and are you working with City of Baton Rouge Police Department?
Well, they have been pretty much taking care of what's inside the city. We're taking care of what's out, but we've been inside the city too. And we're working with wherever it is, if it's businesses that are being affected or residents, and in most cases it's one and the same. But we've gone down and shut down a lot of it. That's something you can't tolerate. You can't have somebody doing all that mess out there. It's just doesn't make a bit of sense. But my guys have been on top of where it's happened, where we're responsible. But we've gone inside the city. We've gone inside the city, and we will continue. If we ride and we see something, we're gonna handle it. It doesn't matter where it is. So, but that is a problem. It's totally ridiculous. It defies any logic. I mean, it's illegal. So, we're gonna do what we can to try to stop that. Yes, ma'am.
I am stunned by the difference in the homicides that you handle versus the homicides inside the Baton Rouge city limits. And so could you compare and contrast the reasons for that difference? And just help me understand why that difference is so great.
Yes, and I'm gonna elaborate on it after I answer that part of it to you. From what I see, is Baton Rouge City has a heavier populace than we do in other areas. A lot of it is very low income, and I will elaborate on this, but I think it's just the fact that they've got some areas that are just crime-ridden areas and that expands, and you got to. And there again, we're going to help Baton Rouge as much as we can. And let me explain it to you this way. When I became sheriff, I did the same thing I was doing in Baker as chief of police, but I was in a much bigger environment. I was exposed to a lot more than just this. My first year, I saw things happening, and I said, why is this the way it is? And I prayed about it, thought about it, and I said, well, let's start with me. What formed my character? What really formed my character? And I use a triangle analogy. The base of my triangle was my home. One side was my school, one side was my church. And no matter where I was in that triangle, I got the same message: right over wrong, do the right thing no matter what the cost, and if I didn't, I had consequences to face. My circle of influence around my triangle, the TV I watched, the movies I watched, the positive role models I had, sports athletes, or whether it was the guy down the street, or whether it was a deputy that I saw. I mean, it was all the same thing. You got the same message: right or wrong, do the right thing no matter what the cost. These young people that are pulling all these triggers and killing each other over nothing and causing collateral damage. That triangle virtually doesn't exist. It's usually a single mother or grandmother that's working 2 and 3 jobs just to put a roof over their head and food on their table. They're not in school, they're not in church, but they have a circle of influence. The music they listen to, the TV, the movies, all the negative messages they get in their life. And then if you look at all that, you know why we're having a lot of the problems we do. And this didn't start now. It started years ago when they took prayer out of school and breakdowns in family units. This isn't something that just people come to me and say, why is this just happening now? I said, it started decades ago. And that's what I believe. I'm 46 years in this business. I'm a lifelong resident of East Baton Rouge Parish. And that's what I believe. There's too many breakdowns. But their circle of influence is really what motivates them one way or the other. I can take you to any area around here in some of the worst parts of East Baton Rouge Parish, and we can go pull some young person off the street corner, and I say, where are you going to be 5 years from now? They will look at you, and Hiller knows what I'm talking about. He deals with it every day. They will look you dead in the eye and say, I'm going to either be dead or in prison. That's sad. And they'll tell you, I'm going to get what I can get while I can get it. And if I wind up dead or in prison, so be it. A very sad commentary. But you can understand it when you see where they grow up and without positive role models. I hear things come out of athletes' mouths now, especially on a professional level, and that's who they look up to. And it's even deeper than that. When you go to the parish prison and you see the people we have incarcerated, there's several things that's going to stick out in your mind. Number one, the majority of the people we have incarcerated out there are addicted to drugs or alcohol or both. So addiction is a big problem. Drugs is a big problem. Majority of them, like I say, have little or no education. That's another problem. The majority of them, if they've had opportunities, they hadn't taken advantage of the opportunities. They come from economically depressed backgrounds. All of those things figure in because look, if I had an officer or deputy talk to me when I was coming up, it scared me to death, and whatever they told me, I listened to them, and I said, man, I ain't putting myself back in this position. We can talk to them, and we do. Some of them we reach, but the majority of them we don't. Another thing we got to look at parish prison too. I'll tell you what we do have. We don't have a chemical dependency unit out there. We help them through AA and other things, narcotics and all that stuff, but we don't have a chemical dependency unit. What we don't have either is a mental health unit. And that's a lot of what you see out on our streets. A lot of it. The Bridge Center has helped. I helped do it along with Hiller, but I knew when we were doing it, it wasn't going to be big enough, and it's not. But at least it's better than where we were with nothing. But we have to address all those problems as a society, or things are not going to get better. They're not going to get better. And I hate to sit here and tell you that, but on the same breath, I'm going to tell you we're going to do everything in our power to try to make that change, try to improve your quality of life, because it improves our quality of life. But there's no one thing that you can put your finger on and say, this is why it's at. This is where it's at. Politics today and everything else, it all has don't tell me what, I'm going to get started, but do what you know is the right thing to do for the right reasons. But we got too many people that don't.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Oh man, I'm just starting.